The drizzle fell in thin silver threads, blurring the edges of the marble memorial garden. Umbrellas bloomed like dark flowers among the mourners, but Thomas Beckett stood bareheaded, letting the rain slick his hair and cling to the sharp lines of his face. The roses at the base of the monument were already beaded with water, their petals bruised from the weather. His fingers rested on the carved letters Elena Marie Beckett, beloved wife and advocate, as if touching the stone might anchor him in a reality he'd been trying to accept for a year. He had learned to master grief the way he mastered hostile takeovers, keep the walls high, the voice level, and never let the enemy, whether a boardroom rival or his own reflection, see the cracks. Even now, with the wind pushing cold into his coat, he looked every bit the billionaire in control, except his eyes told a different story. The voice that cut through the rain wasn't loud, but it had a precision that stopped him mid-breath. Your wife is still alive. Thomas turned, slow as if afraid of what might vanish if he moved too quickly. Just beyond the circle of black coats and umbrellas stood a small figure, a black girl, maybe 10, hair tucked beneath a soaked hood. Her hoodie was two sizes too big, sagging on her thin frame, the sleeves dark with water. Her gaze didn't waver. What did you say? His voice was cautious, but something beneath it tightened. I saw her, the girl repeated. Your wife. She's not dead. One of his assistants behind him chuckled, an ugly sound in the hush. Let's get Mr. Beckett out of the rain. Quiet, Thomas snapped, eyes still locked on the girl. She stepped closer, her shoes squelching in the wet gravel. I was there the night she came out of the water. She was bleeding, scared. They dragged her into a van. Thomas's jaw set hard. Little girl. My wife drowned off the coast in a storm. There were no survivors. We searched for weeks. She survived, the girl insisted. I remember her. And what makes you so sure it was her? She had a scar. The girl's small hand emerged from the sleeve, tracing from her elbow to her wrist. Right here. And short, platinum blonde hair. She kept yelling your name. The rain pressed in, steady, quiet. Thomas's heart lurched. That scar, Elena, had gotten it in college, shattering glass in a student protest. She never spoke of it, except to him. And the hair after chemotherapy, she'd worn it short, proud, defiant. That's not possible. He murmured. It is. The girl's voice cut through him. The man in charge had a fake arm. Plastic. White. It clicked when he moved it. He told them to move her before anyone saw. Thomas's breath caught. She wore a necklace, the girl added, softer now, gold, with a heart. To letters on it E and B. The ground tilted beneath him. That pendant had been a 10th anniversary gift. No one, not even the press, knew about it. The girl reached into her hoodie and pulled out a small, rain-soaked handkerchief. Pale blue, fraying lace edges. One word was still visible. Sewn in gold thread, Elena. Thomas stepped toward her, his voice low. Where did you get this? Behind the old cannery. They stopped the van there that night. I watched from behind. The fence. The wind swept across the marble path, lifting stray petals from the roses. The world around them blurred mourners, aides, umbrellas until there was only her and him. What's your name? Maya. And why tell me now? Because no one else listened. Her eyes didn't flinch. I tried. A cop laughed at me, said to stop making up stories. But it wasn't a story. I saw her. Thomas studied her face. Too clear-eyed to be lying. Too precise to be guessing. The handkerchief in his palm felt like fire. Get the car, he said over his shoulder. Maya's eyes widened. Really, if what you're saying is true, I need your help. The black sedan rolled up, its doors swallowing them from the rain. As it pulled away, Thomas glanced in the side mirror. A man in a gray raincoat stood where Maya had been, binoculars lowered. His lips barely moved as he tapped something in his pocket. They've made contact, he murmured into an earpiece. Proceed to step 2. The car's interior smelled faintly of leather and cedar oil, a warmth that felt almost alien after the cold by the memorial garden. The windows were darkened, shielding them from the city's winter glare, but Thomas still felt the weight of eyes on him, as though the world outside the glass had stretched long fingers toward his chest and curled them around his heart. Maya sat opposite him in the back seat, shoulders hunched, hands buried deep in the front pocket of her hoodie. She wasn't shivering, but there was a coiled stillness about her, like a stray cat deciding whether to run or bite. Droplets from her hair traced damp lines down her cheeks. She watched him the way someone watches a locked door, trying to guess what's behind it. He broke the silence first. Tell me everything, and start from the beginning. Her voice was flat, but steady. I was sleeping near the piers that night behind a dumpster by the fence at the old cannery. The storm was bad. I was trying to keep my stuff dry when I heard shouting. She glanced at him, gauging his reaction, then continued. A boat came in. Not a fishing one, not for cargo either, small, fast, quiet. 2 men pulled a woman out of it. She was fighting, but not hard, like she was too tired to fight. Thomas leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Described the men. One was tall, white, gray beard, moved like he was used to giving orders, and the other, her eyes narrowed. The other had that fake arm, left side, white plastic, made a clicking sound when he grabbed her. He felt the floor tilt beneath him again, and you're sure about the scar, the hair. I don't forget faces, Maya said simply, especially when they look like they're begging you to help. For the first time, Thomas noticed the way her eyes seemed older than her years. Not hardened, just weathered. The kind of eyes that had seen things and learned quickly that nobody was coming to make them. Right. And the handkerchief? He asked. They dropped it, she said, when they carried her from the boat to the van. I waited until they left, then went and picked it up. Figured, maybe someday it'd matter to someone. It mattered now, more than she could know. Thomas's phone buzzed once in his pocket. He ignored it, keeping his gaze locked on her. Why come to me now? Why wait a year? Didn't know who you were. Just knew her name. Then I saw your face in a magazine in the library last week, said you'd be at the memorial today. She shrugged. So I came. The car slowed as they climbed into the hills toward the estate. Outside, the city lights bled into a haze below them. Thomas spoke quietly, almost to himself. If you're lying, I'll know. Her reply was sharp, quick. If I was lying, I wouldn't have kept the handkerchief for a year. They pulled through the wrought iron gates, gravel crunching under the tires. The mansion loomed ahead, glassed and still rising from the cliff like a fortress. Thomas glanced once more at the girl, this unexpected fracture in the life he'd built to keep the past buried. Inside the car, the air seemed to thicken with something unspoken, a strange mixture of dread and possibility. Somewhere in that silence, his phone buzzed again. This time, he glanced at it. A single message from an encrypted number. You're being watched. In the rearview mirror, he caught the faint outline of headlights far down the road, keeping just enough distance to blend into the dark. He didn't say anything to Maya. Not yet. But he knew one thing was sudden. Icy clarity. Whatever she had brought into his life, it wasn't just the possibility of Elena's survival. It was a storm, and it was already on his doorstep. The front gates clanged shut behind them, the sound echoing through the damp night air like a judge's gavel. The car eased up the long drive, its headlights painting silver streaks. Across the wet stone, Maya's gaze darted from window to window, taking in the scale of the Beckett estate, glass walls, sweeping terraces, the distant pulse of ocean waves far below the cliffs. Inside, the warmth hit them immediately. The faint scent of burning cedar drifted from somewhere deeper in the house. A housekeeper in a pressed uniform appeared at the door, her eyes flicking to the girl in the dripping hoodie. Thomas's voice cut across her hesitation. She's with me. Get her dry clothes, hot food. Maya followed silently, her small, wet footprints marking the polished walnut floor. She said nothing as they passed towering shelves of books and modern art that looked like it belonged in a museum. But she missed nothing. Her eyes darted to the security cameras in the corners, the keypad locks on certain doors, the way every hallway had at least one mirror. In the den, a fire glowed low. In the hearth, Thomas gestured to the couch. Sit. She did, slowly, but didn't sink into the cushions. Instead, she perched on the edge, fingers laced, back straight, a predator ready to move. Even if the predator was only 10. You said the van stopped at the cannery, Thomas began, his voice low. Where did it go from there? South, she said without hesitation. They didn't go far before they turned off the main road, somewhere near the docks again. I think it was a warehouse, but I couldn't see much. It was raining so hard. The housekeeper returned with a folded sweater, soft leggings, and a steaming plate grilled cheese cut in halves, tomato soup and apple slices. Maya eyed it warily, then began eating in slow, deliberate bites. Thomas stayed quiet, watching her over the rim of his glass. She ate like someone used to making food last. Like every bite might be the last she'd see for days. When she was halfway through the soup, he spoke again. You've lived on the streets long enough. That's not an answer. She set her spoon down, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and met his eyes. You ever tell someone the truth and have them laugh in your face? His throat tightened. Yes, then you know why I don't answer questions unless I have to. The air between them shifted just a fraction, but enough for him to feel the first fragile thread of trust. He stood and crossed to a side cabinet, pulling out a slim black case. When he opened it, the light caught the edge of a small satellite phone. He set it on the coffee table in front of her. This is yours. If you see that man again, the one with the arm, you call me. No matter the time. Her brow furrowed. You really believe me now? I believe enough to take you seriously. And that means I have to assume someone else will too, someone I'd rather not find you first. For the first time, something flickered in her expression that wasn't guardedness. It might have been relief. Before she could reply, a faint chirp broke the quiet. Thomas's phone again. He glanced down at the message. This time, there was no ambiguity. 2 men outside. East Gate. Not ours. He straightened, the softness gone from his face. Without a word, he crossed to the wall and pressed a panel. Somewhere in the house, a low hum began as State's outer defenses powering up. Maya set her soup down. They're here for me, aren't they? His gaze locked on hers. They might be here for both of us. Outside, headlights flashed once beyond the gates, then vanished into the dark. The rain had stopped by morning, but the air outside the Beckett estate was heavy, thick with the kind of damp that clung to skin and didn't let go. Thomas had been up all night, his mind replaying every word Maya had spoken, every flicker of truth in her eyes, the memory of the scar, the necklace, the handkerchief. None of it fit into the clean, final narrative he'd been sold a year ago. By the time the first pale light seeped over the ocean, he had already made his decision. Maya found him in the dining room, staring at a mug of coffee gone cold. She changed into the clothes the housekeeper had given her. The sweater sleeves bunched at her wrists, the leggings a size too big. Her hair was still damp, curling slightly at the ends. You didn't sleep, she said, sliding into the chair opposite him. You've been watching me. You left your office light on, she replied. As if that explained everything. He pushed the mug away and leaned forward. Today, you're going to take me to the exact spot where you saw, then pull her from the boat. Every step, every angle. I want to see it through your eyes. Maya hesitated. If they're still there, they won't see us. He cut in. We'll be careful, an hour later. The black SUV slid through the fog-choked streets of the industrial district. The air smelled of rust and seawater. Maya sat in the back seat, her small hands pressed to the glass, pointing out turns without hesitation. There, she said finally, nodding toward a chain-link fence with a jagged hole near the bottom. Beyond it, the old cannery squatted like a dead thing, its windows broken, its paint flaking. A faded sign read New England Seafood Company, but no one had worked here in years. Thomas's earpiece crackled. Ree's voice came low, almost a whisper. 1 guard south exit. No insignia, but armed, moving like military. Thomas glanced at Maya. You said they took her around the left side? She pointed. Door under the light. He stepped out of the SUV, the wind tugging at his coat, and met Ree at the corner. The man was crouched low, eyes sweeping the perimeter. Doesn't look like much inside, Ree murmured, but there's a locked corridor with a fresh padlock. Not standard for an abandoned fish plant. They slipped in through the rear. The interior smelled of salt and decay, but in one corridor, the air shifted to clean, to sharp. Ree clipped the padlock, and they stepped into a small room no bigger than a hospital ward. A cot sat in the center, metal restraints hanging from its frame. The walls were bare except for faint letters scratched into the cement. Eb. Thomas's. Breath caught. His fingers brushed over the etching. It wasn't old. Weeks, maybe a couple of months. She was here, Ree said quietly, beside the cot. A tray sat on a metal stand, an empty syringe rolling lazily with their movement. Thomas forced himself to look away, but then he saw at a scrap of navy silk, caught on the cot's edge, the silver embroidery barely visible in the dim light. It was part of her scarf. Back outside, Maya was perched in the back seat, her knees pulled to her chest. When Thomas returned, she searched his face. You were right, he said simply. Her eyes flickered with pride, but her voice was steady. She was scared, wasn't she? He nodded. Very. She looked down. I don't understand why anyone would take her. She's just a lady. She's not just a lady, Thomas said. His voice was quieter now, but it carried weight. She was about to destroy some very powerful people. Sometimes, when they can't control a person, they go after what that person loves most. From the earpiece, Ree's voice broke in. "We've got company. Gray sedan. East side. No plates." Thomas's gaze slid toward the street. A shadow shifted just beyond the corner of a building, and though he couldn't see the man's face, he caught the glint of something metallic where a left hand should have been. The voice came faint through the static in Ree's mic. "They're moving. Should we engage?" Thomas's answer was immediate. "No. Let them think we don't see them." But in his chest, his pulse had already spiked. The game wasn't starting, it had already begun, and now they both knew the other was on the board. The SUV rolled back through the twisting streets of the industrial district, its tires hissing over slick asphalt. Thomas sat in the back beside Maya, the silk scrap resting in his palm. Every so often, his thumb brushed the embroidery, as if testing whether it was real or just another trick his grief had conjured. Maya kept glancing sideways at him. "You're not saying much," she said finally. "I'm thinking," he replied. "About her, about them." He corrected, his voice clipped. "The people who took her, the ones who were watching us today." The girl shifted in her seat. "You saw him too, didn't you? The arm guy." Thomas's jaw tightened. "I saw him. Back at the estate." The rain had returned, fine as powdered glass against the windows. Ree was waiting in the security hub, a wall of monitors glowing, pale in the dim light. He tapped a key, and grainy footage from a street camera filled the central screen. Two men in dark coats, walking away from the cannery. One moving with the mechanical hitch of someone carrying weight in his left arm. 2 minutes after we left, Ree said, "They didn't follow. Either they wanted you to see them, or they're confident they've still got the advantage." Thomas's eyes didn't leave the screen. "Run every feed within 5 miles. I want to know where they went, who they spoke to, and where they're sleeping tonight." Ree nodded. "Already typing. There's more. I pulled some financials on the property. The cannery was bought last year by a shell company, Ashmont Holdings, registered in Delaware, but linked to accounts in Singapore, Cyprus, and the Cayman Islands." Ashmont, Thomas repeated. The name was a splinter in his memory, sharp and familiar. He'd seen it before, buried in a list of subcontractors. His wife had been investigating before the storm. Maya had wandered over to the monitors, peering up at the flickering images. "You think that's where they took her after?" "I think Ashmont is part of something much bigger," Thomas said. "And I think they don't lose people unless they want to." She frowned. "So we make them lose one." Her tone was so certain, so matter-of-fact, that Thomas found himself staring at her. She wasn't just relaying what she'd seen anymore. She was leaning into the fight, staking a place in it. Ree's voice cut in again. "You should also know Ashmont's accounts lit up this morning. Transfers moving fast, small amounts, but in patterns I've seen before." "What kind of patterns?" "Shell games," Ree said. "The kind you play when you're about to run." Thomas's mind sharpened. If Ashmont was pulling its money, the network knew they'd been spotted, and that meant Elena's time was shrinking. "Can you trace where the funds are going?" "I can," Ree said, "but it'll take me 48 hours. "We don't have 48 hours, Thomas replied. He turned to Maya. "You remember the other place you thought they might have gone? The second dock?" She nodded. "Yeah, it's near Pier 14. They have big metal doors painted red." Thomas looked back at Ree. "Put a team on it tonight. No contact. I just want eyes. And if she's there?" Ree asked. Thomas's voice was low, dangerous. "Then we go in before they even know we're coming." Maya's gaze flicked between them. "What if it's a trap?" Thomas allowed himself the faintest smile. "Then we spring it on them first." Somewhere in the corner of the room, a small red light blinked once, twice, then went dark, unseen by any of them. A signal left the estate through a buried transmitter, a message to someone far away. Subject, Beckett and girl on the move. Initiate Directive 81. And just like that, the hunt was no longer one-sided. The wind off the bay was sharp enough to cut skin, carrying the tang of salt and the faint reek of diesel. Thomas crouched in the shadow of an abandoned crane, his eyes locked on the warehouse at the far end of Pier 14. Even from here, he could see the red-painted doors Maya had described. They looked weather-worn, chipped with years of use, but the faint sheen of fresh oil on the hinges told a different story. Beside him, readjusted the long-range optics to guards out front. No insignia, no visible weapons, but their stance is military. One more on the roof. Thermal shows movement inside at least 3 heat signatures clustered in the northeast corner. Thomas's pulse hammered against his ribs. Northeast corner meant offices. Offices meant privacy. Privacy meant someone important. Back in the surveillance van parked 3 blocks away, Maya was hunched over a bank of monitors. Her hoodie pulled tight around her head. The glow from the screens lit her face in blue light, making her look older than her years. "I've got a camera feed from the East Alley," she said into the comms. "One of your rooftop guys just took a smoke break. Ree, if you're thinking about an approach, now's the time." Ree's voice came back low. "Copy that. Moving." Thomas exhaled slowly, steadying himself. Every operation had a moment where the plan could pivot from success to disaster, and this was it. He signaled to Ree, and they moved, shadows flowing. Across cracked concrete, the sound of the tide slapping with pilings far below. They breached through a side entrance, bypassing a cheap alarm with one of Ree's magnetic bypass tools. Inside, the air was warmer, thick with the scent of machine oil and disinfectant. The hum of generators echoed faintly, almost masking the muffled sound of voices. The corridor ahead was narrow, lit by a single flickering bulb. Thomas could feel the weight of the pistol under his coat, but he didn't draw yet. Instead, they crept forward until the voices grew clearer. "Moving her tonight," one man said. His tone clipped. "Orders from above." "Above," another replied. "You mean Whitmore?" Thomas froze. Whitmore. The name was a nail in his memory. Hell, J. Whitmore, ex-CIA strategist. Elena's notes had circled his name. Twice before she vanished, Ree glanced at him, the unspoken question in his eyes. "Do we move now?" Thomas nodded once. They rounded the corner and burst into the office. The 2 men inside barely had time to react before Ree disarmed one and slammed him against the wall. The other reached for a radio, but Thomas's hand was on him in an instant, shoving him into the desk. "Where is she?" Thomas's voice was low, deadly calm. The man laughed, a humorless sound. "She's already gone." "You'll never." A sharp crack silenced him as Ree brought the butt of his pistol down on the back of his head before Thomas could process the surge of frustration. Maya's voice cut in through the comms. "Thomas, you've got inbound 3 vehicles, unmarked, coming in from the south. They'll be on you in less than 2 minutes." Thomas scanned the office and spotted it, a laptop still logged in, files open. He yanked the drive from his jacket and plugged it in, data transferring in a blur of scrolling bars. "We're not leaving empty-handed," he said. The laptop screen flashed with folder names. Shipments _confirmed, directives, black _triangle _OPSEC. His chest tightened. This was bigger than proof of Elena's captivity. This was the skeleton of the entire network. The transfer completed just as the rumble of engines vibrated through the floor. Ree was already at the door, covering their exit. "South alley's blocked," Maya said in his ear, "but there's a maintenance tunnel in the northwest corner. It runs under the pier." "How do you know that?" Thomas asked as they moved. "I've been here before," she said. "Long time ago." They found the tunnel hatch, rusted but still functional, and dropped down into the damp darkness. The smell of seawater and rotting wood was overpowering, but it led them out onto a narrow slip just beyond the reach of the warehouse's floodlights. A small boat waited, engine idling low. Ree climbed it first, then Thomas. Before they pushed off, Thomas glanced back toward the warehouse. For a split second, he thought he saw a tall figure in the shadows of the upper window sill, deliberate, watching them leave. Even from that distance, he knew the posture. He knew the calm in it. Whitmore. The boat pulled away into the fog, the warehouse shrinking into the gloom behind them. In the van, Maya met them with a look that was part relief, part defiance. "You got something." Thomas held up the drive. More than something, enough to burn their network to the ground. But even as he said it, a thought gnawed at the edge of his mind. Whitmore had let them take it, which meant whatever they had just stolen was only the beginning, and he just invited the storm to follow them home.